Hello, my name is Larry Michael. I'm with the Amel Rumble Agency, and this video is about who gets personal injury protection from your auto policy. Personal injury protection, or PIP as it's commonly referred to, is perhaps the most important coverage on your auto policy. And the people who used to get this coverage from your auto policy no longer do since no-fault reform laws were signed. So who should watch this video? Someone who really needs to know that their auto policy will provide this most important coverage to their family members. People who don't want to go broke from paying medical costs. And you just got a letter from your insurance company asking you who's driving your vehicles. They're asking you that because some of those people are no longer covered by your personal injury protection, and they want you to understand that and take other courses of action. Since no-fault reform, the only people getting personal injury protection on your auto policy are the named insureds who show up in black and white, and the resident relatives who are nowhere to be found on your policy. Who's a resident relative is determined by the insurance company on the day of the accident. You need to know for sure that the people you think are resident relatives in your household are considered resident relatives by the insurance company. Okay? It's time to take this seriously and call your agent and have a good conversation. Now, if you want to know some details about this, here they are. Before no-fault reform, if you were injured in an auto accident, there was a series of questions that would be asked to determine if you would get personal injury protection on your policy or somebody else's. For example, here's how it went. If you're injured, the first thing they'd ask you is, are you a named insured on an auto policy? If it's your policy, you are. And you'd say yes, and your policy would pay. If you are a resident relative of someone who has their own policy and they're a named insured, well, then that person's policy would pay for your medical expenses. If that didn't work, we would say, well, were you injured in a vehicle where the vehicle owner had an auto policy? If that's the case, then the vehicle owner's auto policy would pay for medical expenses. Or even the vehicle driver's auto policy would pay for medical expenses. And if that still didn't work, the state of Michigan would pay unlimited medical expenses for you. Since no-fault reform, it's changed. That safety net, the safety net of knowing that the vehicle owner, the vehicle driver's policy would pick up your medical expenses, and that the state of Michigan would pick up those expenses, the safety net's gone. If you're not a named insured or a resident relative, it doesn't matter whose vehicle it is or who is driving. If you're not a named insured or a resident relative, you're left with $250,000 of PIP coverage from the state and whatever health plan you've got. And while $250,000 seems like a lot, most of that can get consumed with one ambulance ride and a weekend in the intensive care unit. So it's really not that much money. Here's some real life scenarios, because if you're still thinking, big deal, well, stay tuned. Let's say you pick up your mom. She doesn't drive anymore, so you picked her up and take her to the store. Well, she's a relative, but she doesn't live with you. So if you're in an accident, you'll get PIP coverage and your mom won't. I don't know, hopefully got a plan somewhere else. Or let's say your son has a car. He graduated from college, he's in Chicago driving in circles. You figure he's okay. Well, he's not a resident relative anymore, so if he's in an accident, he's not going to get personal injury protection from your auto policy. Or you loan your car to a neighbor. Well, they have a license, so no problem there, but if they don't have an auto policy, they're not going to get medical coverage from your auto policy like they used to. Shoot, even if you ran somebody over in the crosswalk before, your personal injury protection would extend to that person. That doesn't work that way anymore. You run somebody over in a crosswalk, they'll have to sue you to get their medical bills paid. So, as you can see, it's not too tough in real life to come up with situations where people who used to have medical coverage from your auto policy no longer do. So why should you care? Look, the big safety net is gone. This concept of resident relative is more important than it used to be. There are no other ways to get coverage for your medical costs for an auto policy. You got to be a named insured or a resident relative. So what happens now? Call your agent. Look, unless you're living alone and you have no friends, no one else ever drives your car, this is something to think about. If you've got people who depend on you and depend on you to make good decisions that will get their medical costs paid if they're in an accident, call your agent and have a great discussion with them. All right, thanks for watching.